everyone. Welcome to STG207. The session is Protect Your Data with AWS Backup Overview, Use Cases and What's New with AWS Backup. I'm Palak Desai. I lead product management for AWS Backup. Joining me is Bisman Sethi. She is also a PM on the team. We also have our esteemed customers, Chuck Uwana from ExxonMobil Global Services Company. He's going to talk about his journey with AWS Backup, and Rushir Patel from JPMorgan Chase, who's also going to talk about their journey with AWS Backup. So let's get started. We have an exciting agenda ahead of us. From a viewpoint of what I'm going to cover today, we're going to talk through, why AWS Backup, why does it matter, why should we protect our data, what is new with AWS Backup. So we have had an exciting year. This year in 2025, we've had many key launches, and we are going to walk you through those launches. But you're going to hear it from our customers, how they are progressing with AWS Backup, what does data protection mean to them. So we'll round out with a customer journey with Exxon and JPMorgan Chase, our customers who are going to present their journey with us, and then we'll round out the session. Just to call out, and I'll post the slide at the end, there are many exciting sessions around what is new with AWS Backup, data protection, resiliency, ransomware in general. So I'll flash the slide at the end, but please take a look, attend as many sessions as you can. All right, let's get started. Now, we all know that data is growing, and customers like yourself use data to run their businesses. We use data to better serve our customers. We use our data, say, for example, from the healthcare industries. We go back in time to understand how our health is progressing. We use financial data to make decisions which better serve our customers. In general, customers like yourself are using data to drive their business. So data has value, and data is growing. So as a result, we want to protect that data. And AWS Backup provides you with capabilities that allows you to protect that data. Quick facts, I want to thank all my customers. We are greater than 150K customers and growing. We refresh this stat every year at reInvent, and we are protecting 3.8 exabytes worth of data. So thank you so much for placing your trust on the service. From what do we do perspective, AWS Backup is the native solution for centralized data protection. We protect data sitting in the cloud, all of our AWS stateful resources, such as Amazon EBS, such as Amazon S3, and so on and so forth. We cover 20 plus resources that we protect. And then we have also extended in hybrid scenarios through our protection for VMware backups. So we can take a VMware server and back it up, right? So we have that coverage from a viewpoint of data protection. Double-clicking in, what do we really do? We provide a fully managed service that centralizes and automates data protection via policies across 20 plus resources. And as you can see, I'm not going to walk through the entire slide or each resource one by one, but you can see we have coverage across compute, block storage, object storage, file storage, databases, management, applications, and hybrid via AWS Backup support for VMware and SAP HANA. You see there is a new block that's emerged this year on the slide, which is containers. I'm very pleased to announce that we released our container support for AWS Backup, support for EKS earlier in the month at KubeCon, and it's well received by customers. So it was a direct customer ask for AWS Backup, and we have delivered on that promise. And we'll talk about all the launches in detail in later slides. On top of basic data protection, we provide things along the lines of search and item level recovery, logically air gapping of your data, so logically air gap vault for ransomware protection, restore testing, malware scanning, and auditing. So we have a slew of capabilities that we provide on top of the data that gets backed up. Some of the use cases that our customers use us for are on the slide. Of course, it starts with backups, so we provide cloud-native backups for 20 plus resources and growing. This year, we have added support for Redshift serverless, we have added support for Aurora DSQL, and we have added support for Amazon EKS. So we have expanded the number of resources that we back up data for. You can recover from the backups for use cases such as disaster recovery. Say you fat-fingered and deleted a bunch of files, and if you want to recover, you can recover from your backups. Say there is a natural disaster, an earthquake, and you need to recover in a different region, then you can recover from backups. Of course, many of our customers are in the regulated industries, so they look for reporting on the backup posture, and we have capabilities built in our backup audit manager to provide you with those reports that you can serve to your regulators to understand how we are backing up, what you are backing up, where does it get stored, is it encrypted, how long the retention is, and so on and so forth. You can customize the reports based on your needs. And finally, our key pillar is also ransomware recovery. A lot of our customers have come and asked us, like, what are you doing in the space when we are in front of a ransomware attack? Like we are subject to a ransomware event. Like, how do I recover my applications from the data that's backed up? Because that will make sure that you are able to survive that ransomware event successfully. So we have a slew of capabilities even in that space that we have done through our logically air-gapped vaults and extensions of that portfolio that we'll cover in this session. So I'm not going to go through all the line items on the slide. It's a handful, it's an eye chart. So I'll give you guys a few moments to kind of walk through the slide. But as you can see, in 2025, we have been very busy. We have launched a bunch of capabilities, support for new resources via Redshift serverless support and Aurora T-SQL, Amazon EKS. We've also strengthened support for our existing resources by creating warm tiered storage at a low cost for longer retention. For S3 backups, we have done enhancements on our RDS backups, and we'll continue to progress on that front. On the ransomware protection, our notable launches, and Bisman will cover them in detail, are around ransomware protection by enhancing capabilities for logically air-gapped vaults and also adding malware scanning via Guard Duty. And of course, we are going to keep on working on our platform. We are going to improve the operations and resiliency of the platform. We are going to work through performance. We are going to see those continuously throughout the year where you can see the backups are being more and more performant. And we are going to work on visibility, and we will work on extending our platform to new regions as they come up, right? So that's the platform improvements. With this backdrop, I would like to invite Bisman. She works continuously with customers like yourself to walk through some of our key launches.
Great. Thanks, Palak. And as Palak mentioned, we've been really busy this year, and it's great to see all of the customer feedback that we get from you, continuously talking to you and hearing what you're saying and being able to deliver on them. So I'm going to deep dive into a few of our key launches of what enhanced capabilities we have to offer. All of these now are GA, and we will continue, as Palak mentioned, to keep enhancing these as we go forward. So one of our first key launches today was this year was enhancement for logically air-gapped vaults. Taking a step back, a logically air-gapped vault is a capability we launched last year for that ransomware protection pillar. A logically air-gapped vault is a vault that is air-gapped in nature and stored in an Amazon-owned account. Those vaults, by default, are locked with a compliance vault lock to ensure that immutability. This year, what we've done to enhance that ransomware protection is add multi-party approval, which essentially means that you can create a secure, trusted group of people, which requires quorum, or 3, say, out of 5 users, to approve any sharing of that vault across organizations or when a restore is required, say in a ransomware event. With this, we've added this additional critical layer of security to the logically air-gapped vault for enhanced ransomware protection, and more importantly, allowed for faster RTOs because it does allow for direct restore outside of your organization. In that same vein, we've continued to improve on this with direct customer feedback requests. So the first is support for direct copies to a logically air-gapped vault. As it stands prior to this launch, in order to store a backup in your logically air-gapped vault, you would need to create a copy in your production account and then copy that backup into a logically air-gapped vault. Now, while we did that by design, because that does provide enhanced capabilities of keeping 2 copies of your backups, we got direct feedback from customers from who had different use cases in mind for this feature. So what we now support is backing up your backup from your workload account directly into a logically air-gapped vault for those additional use cases, and it does provide an additional cost-saving measure, so you don't need to keep 2 backup copies. The second is expanding support for CMK, or Customer Managed Key support for logically air-gapped vaults. Again, by design, our default encryption for a logically air-gapped vault is an Amazon-owned key. And the thought process behind this is, in a ransomware event, if you lose access to your keys, you would still be able to restore your backups in the lag vault. However, we do understand customers have different requirements, compliance requirements, either internally or externally. So with this, we do give you the option to encrypt your backups that are stored in a logically air-gapped vault with a customer managed key. So right here is a typical reference architecture of how a customer may be implementing a logically air-gapped vault today. In the left-hand corner, you'll see a customer's workload account where they are backing up, say, their S3 buckets and EBS volumes into a standard AWS Backup vault. What you can then do is copy it into this logically air-gapped vault for that second layer of protection and immutability. What we have at the bottom is what some customers do to manage the access to their keys, and having a separate key vault account where their CMKs are managed, and in this case, using their customer managed key to encrypt the backups in this logically air-gapped vault. Up top, you'll see 2 additional accounts where the logically air-gapped vault has been shared to for 2 separate purposes. The one at the top is a forensics account. This is where customers typically want to isolate their workloads to do forensics on their backups, such as restore testing. Restore testing is another capability that we have where customers can actually restore their backups periodically and validate that their data is there as expected. This, of course, we always say in the backup world, your backups are only good as their restores, so we do encourage this for those very critical workloads. At the bottom, you'll also see the AWS recovery account. And this is what we mean in terms of a ransomware event or any event that you might have from a security perspective. A logically air-gapped vault does allow you to share that vault across organizations or account. And here you'll see we have added the multi-party approval access. So with that new multi-party approval feature, you can opt to have, say, 3 out of 5 people ensure that they have validated this sharing of the account, of the logically air-gapped vault, so you can restore it into your clear environment. With that same thread of ransomware protection, we've also invested in an integration with Amazon Guard Duty for malware scanning of your backups. So while our backups, again, are stored in this immutable fashion, we also know that customers want to be able to ensure that their backups are clean and safe to restore. And that's why we added support for Amazon Guard Duty. At launch, and what we have just launched, you can now scan your EC2, EBS, and S3 backups for malware. And you can do this in 2 ways. One is on a periodic basis. So as part of the backup plans and policies you set, you can now opt into scanning these backups, which means that you can have the scans of your backups as the backups are taken. And therefore, if any anomaly is detected, you'll be notified immediately and you can proactively triage the issue. But what this also does is allows for secure restores. We often hear that customers want to be able to restore to the last known good state of time. And so on this, with this on-demand restore capability, is that before you do restore, say you do have to have that recovery account and restore to a new set of principles, in this case, you can do an on-demand to restore it to double check and ensure that your backup is clean before you put it in that account. In addition to our ransomware capabilities, like Pawlik mentioned, we've also added support and continued to improve our existing backup capabilities. So with this launch, S3 backup tiering, we have provided a way for customers to find cost optimizations for those long-term retention backups over 60 days. So how this now works is for your S3 backups, you can choose to tier down the objects in your backup to a lower cost storage tier if those backups and objects are retained for longer than 60 days. You can choose and go in and configure when you would like those objects to be tiered down to based off of your requirements and what makes sense from your cost savings perspective. How this actually will work is after 60 or greater days, depending on the configuration you've put, you will be charged a one-time object transition fee, which is meant to be quite nominal, and then those objects will take advantage of that lower cost storage tier. What makes this unique and is not a cold tier, if you will, is that this has no impact to your restores or any performance. Therefore, we're calling it a tiering option, and it won't operate as a cold storage that you may be familiar with either from AWS Backup or other usage. Lastly, want to highlight one of our other key launches that Pawlik mentioned was that we've added support for Amazon EKS. While we keep continuing growing our Amazon footprint of what we support, I think this is a really interesting launch for two reasons. One, this is following the trends of how customers are now using EKS and how that's transitioned since the birth of Kubernetes. Today, we've seen that a lot of customers are now running stateful workloads on their containers versus stateless in prior years, which is what's really driven the need for this protection. So when we say an EKS backup, we are saying that we will back up your EKS cluster state, so the Kubernetes objects, deployments, and all the resources that are running on your cluster, in addition to the persistent storage that is attached to your cluster. So at launch, we've added support for EBS, S3, and EFS that's attached to your cluster. And as a backup, we will take a backup of all of these components and create a composite recovery point, which will then allow you to restore either just the storage or the full cluster, and to make sure that you do have that continual immutability for EKS. There's no agents required to actually enable this, so you can now add a tag to your clusters or assign these to your existing backup plans and back them alongside your additional resources. With that, I'm glad that we were able to showcase what is AWS Backup in some of our bigger launches, but who better to hear how AWS Backup is benefiting them than some of our customers. So I'd like to invite Chuck on stage to talk about how AWS Backup is being deployed at Exxon and a lot of their learnings. So Chuck. Thank you.
Thank you, Bisman. Thank you, Bisman. Ransomware attacks. The deadliest threats that our digital assets face anywhere. On cloud, on premises, even at our homes. Nothing is immune from ransomware attacks. But that's why we're here. That's why we're all gathered here today to explore strategies, tools, techniques that we can use to not only secure our digital assets from ransomware attacks, but how we can recover those assets if an attack does indeed happen. Now that's important. The conversation we're about to have today is critical because in recent years, ransomware attacks have disrupted global enterprises. They have brought operations to a halt, corrupting data, resulting in huge cost overruns in recovery and reputational damage. Hospitals, healthcare systems are not immune from ransomware attacks. Some of them have had to turn away patients because their systems were locked, their data was corrupted. When Colonial Pipeline was hit by a ransomware attack, it wasn't just a cybersecurity issue. It was a disruptor for fuel supply across the eastern United States. It triggered investigations. It cost millions of dollars in recovery and ransom. JBS Foods paid $11 million $11 million to regain control of his systems and data. Now, these aren't isolated events. These are business continuity failures with wide-ranging national impact. Many experts believe that ransomware attacks are a matter of when, not if. They're almost inevitable. But we don't know. We can't foretell the future. We don't invest in crystal balls. What we at ExxonMobil have invested in is what I call proactive resiliency. It is an insurance policy that we take out that if an attack does indeed infect our systems, that we can recover in a rapid, secure, and safe manner. We're investing in strategic cyber recovery capabilities, not just backups, but secure, orchestrated, on-demand, isolated environments that enable us to restore critical workloads in the event of an attack. My name is Chuck Owanna. I am Principal Application Architect for Strategy and Modernization at ExxonMobil. I have also led a team, a cross-functional team of experts to build out what I've described as proactive resiliency. We did that in AWS. And today I'm going to tell you why we did it, how we did it, and share some key takeaways. When we set out on this project to reimagine our cybersecurity capabilities in AWS, our mission was clear. It was to enable secure, performant, and on-demand recovery of critical workloads in the event of an attack. And we wanted to do this for our global footprint, all of our resources, wherever they're located. But we started with a set of core principles, about 3 of them. The first one is immutability. We wanted our backups to be tamper-proof. We wanted, every time a backup is taken, to not be overwritten. The second one was orchestration. Recovery must be automated and repeatable. We don't want a lot of manual intervention because when the world has ended, our systems are attacked, we want to be able to recover in a rapid fashion. Last but not least is isolation. And isolation is key, it's crucial, because we want to ensure that recovery happens in a clean and secure environment, because the last thing anybody wants is to suffer another ransomware attack while recovering from an attack. That's the last thing any of us want. Why did we choose AWS? Why AWS? There are a few reasons behind that. The first one is we did have robust cyber recovery capabilities on premises. But as we all know, it is hard to scale on-premises hardware. It's difficult to do that. It's also expensive. It's expensive. It takes an army of IT professionals like me to go in and perform a recovery exercise, a successful one. That's one set of reasons. The other reason is because over the past few years, our company has been migrating mission-critical business applications to AWS. These are applications that have large data requirements. So we're moving our on-premises data center to AWS. Now, Because of these factors, it made logical sense, it made strategic sense for us to co-locate our cyber recovery capabilities adjacent to our production systems, but air-gapped, adjacent. In addition to scalability and native security that we get from AWS platform, we do have the benefit of leveraging immutable, air-gapped, isolated systems. We can also use automated, ephemeral systems, environments that we can spin up on a dime. We can do this when we're testing. We can do it in recovery from an actual attack. The reason ephemeral environments is important for us is, well, it saves us cost. We don't have to pay for stateful environments for recovery when they're not in use. But it also reduces our attack surface, because a malicious actor is not going to be able to attack something that doesn't exist. Now, how did we do this? How did we square the circle of our requirements, those core principles that I mentioned earlier? Immutability, orchestration, isolation. How did we resolve those principles with AWS solutions? This is it. This is how we did it. At least this is 50% of how we did it. I have broken up the backup and recovery aspects of our solution, our proactive resiliency solution, into two, just so it's easy for us to review. This is not too dissimilar from the reference architecture that Bisman was sharing just earlier. Right? We leverage AWS Backup. AWS Backup provides the policies that we use to make sure that we write once and we read many. We enforce those policies. We secure our backups immutably in lag vaults. And that provides us with the isolation and immutability that we need. Now, I want to take a moment to step through the diagram that you're looking at. See the white box? That is a workload organization. It could be anything at your enterprise. Production organization, for instance. And then we have three kinds of accounts denoted by the pink boxes that you see inside of that rectangle. The backup delegation account, the smallest box, is the orchestrator of this whole thing. It is the brains of the brains behind the whole operation. AWS Backup leverages policies to orchestrate backups within what we call the cyber application account. And that's the medium-sized box that you see towards the top of the rectangle. Within the cyber application account, by the way, that could be between one to many cyber application accounts, depending upon your use case. At our enterprise, we went through an effort to identify, based on certain criteria, what applications that we term cyber applications. And then we leverage a tagging mechanism to let AWS Backup know to go back up the resources within those cyber application accounts and store them in the backup vault. I want to put a pin on this because Bisman just shared a while ago that there are new features that AWS has rolled out in the past couple of weeks, the direct-to-lag vault feature. That is a real efficiency opportunity for our enterprise, because previously we would stage backups in the backup vault. It was required, but it wasn't doing anything for us, right? It makes removing the requirement to store backups in the backup vault not only makes for efficiency, but it also reduces our costs. And I did the math. I did the math for our workloads. it saves us about 7%. That's 7% in total cost avoidance by just eliminating that. So that's kudos to the AWS team for rolling out the direct-to-lag vault feature. So within the CyberApp account, you can back up applications directly into the logically air-gapped vault. And I want to touch on that because that's the larger box that you see at the bottom of the rectangle. Now, the logically air-gapped vault is the central repository for our immutable backups. That's where we store them. And because of one policies, they're not going to be overwritten. We're still leveraging AWS KMS keys, the AWS managed keys, but thankfully the customer managed keys are now available for us to use in the cyber recovery backup account where the logically air-gapped vault is located. Now, one more thing that I want to mention in this diagram is that we are doing all of this. All of this work and thought process went in because we want to make sure that our golden goose, see the little thing with the halo? The backups are inviolate, untouched, not tampered with. That's the key here for a successful recovery. A clean backup that hasn't been tampered with. So for ease of readability, I have brought in the previous box showing the cyber recovery backup account, just so we can see how we recover, we restore resources from the logically air-gapped vault into a new cyber account that we just created. I mentioned a while ago that ephemerality is a big thing for us. We don't want to pay for stateful environments. It also reduces our attack surface. So leveraging the AWS Resource Access Manager share, or RAM share, we can share, not copy, but we can share the logically air-gapped vault into a new cyber application account that we're trying to recover into. Once it's in there, we can find a recovery point that our cybersecurity team has previously analyzed and told us this is known good. And then the restoration process for this is fully automated. Within a couple of minutes, we have our EC2 instances that were backed up in the previous flow. Our S3 buckets, our EBS volumes, they are available again. All of that in an automated fashion. So that's it. That's precisely how we are enabling proactive resiliency measures in AWS. Now I want to talk about some takeaways. If you take nothing away from this presentation today, I'd like for you to remember that the best time to plan for an attack is before it happens. Resiliency should always trump reaction. Always. That's what we've done here. That's what we've done by deploying proactive resiliency measures to emerge stronger from a ransomware attack. So we used immutable backups stored in lag vaults to make sure that our data is not corrupted. Ephemeral recovery environments that are isolated from corruption because we don't want to be infected again while recovering from an attack. But there's a key piece that I haven't talked about up until now. Recovery, automated recovery tests. You need to test your backups for recovery as frequently as possible. Because if you think about it, when the world has ended, anything that can go wrong will go wrong, right? So you increase confidence in your backup and recovery processes if you can frequently test recovery in ephemeral environments. This is my favorite slide, by the way. So I opened the presentation by talking about ransomware as a matter of when, not if. The inevitability of ransomware attacks. That's why at ExxonMobil, we don't rely on crystal balls. We rely on proactive resiliency measures, and I've shown you exactly what that looks like. Proactive resiliency is an insurance policy that when an attack does happen, we're not going to be sitting ducks. We're going to have our ducks in a row for a rapid, secure, and safe recovery. Thank you for your time. I hope you enjoy the rest of re:Invent.